right? So today we're going to see a few more important topics from RestAssured. So first, let us start with how we can specify path parameters and query parameters. Path and query parameters. So what is path and what is query parameter, right? So we need to first understand this. Then we will see how we can pass this along with the request body. So let me just specify some URL here. So this is my complete URL of. So if you just look at this, in this, there are multiple parts. So here till here, this is called domain, right? This is the domain actually. And this is the path. So wherever you can see slashes, right? So after this .in or .org or .com, till that, this is called domain. So this will first reach to the server. And then inside the server, it will go to API. This is the path. And inside the API, again, it will go to users. So this is also path. Now, once it is reached here, then after question mark, whatever is there, this is called path. This is called query parameter. So after question mark, whatever you can see, that is called query. Okay, page equal to 2, that is called query parameter. So we will see how we can write this query parameter or path parameter in the request. Similarly, let me put one more request here. So look at this one. Okay, this is another type of URL. You can just look at here. So this is a domain and API/users. This is the path, and in the question mark. And from here, it is started queries, query parameter. First, it will go to users and it will go to in the users. Again, there are so many pages. So here it is filtering the page equal to 2 inside the page number 2 and ID equal to 5. So this is also query. So first it will go to this users page and it will go to page. It will find out page number 2. The page number 2, it will find out ID 5 and that particular record will be written. So before question mark, whatever is here, this is called path parameter. This is called path inside the API. So user is a path. And after question mark, whatever is there, this is all comes under query parameter. Okay, sometimes the complete URL is having path parameter and query parameters. So now we'll see how we can specify this path parameters, query parameters. We can directly send this URL along with the post request or get request, whatever. But if you want to specify them separately, suppose these values sometimes keeps changing, right? So every time you may not pass same page number, same page ID. So instead of hard coding these values inside the URL, we can separate them and we can specify the value. Okay, at the time of sending the request, we can dynamically pass these two values. But instead of hard coding the data in the URL, we can just separate them into different variables. Let's see how we can specify them. And go to your RestAssured project, create a new package, and day 3 of RestAssured. And inside this, I'm creating a new class and I'll name it as path and query parameters. Path and query parameters. Click on the finish. Okay, now let me just write a simple test. I say void test query and path params. Parameters. Okay, this is a method I have written, and this I specify with the test annotation. And we have only one test in this, so I'm not specifying any priority. Okay, so test query and path parameters. So here, let me write 3 sections. First of all, given, and we should also import static packages, whatever is required. So let me get them from here. Static packages, which we have to import. Okay, so these are the 3 static packages. Okay, so now in the given, and then when, and then. Okay, so 3 keywords: given, when, and then. So in the given section, normally what you specify, we will specify the prerequisites. Okay, we will specify the prerequisites. And in the get section, we specify the request type: get, post, put, delete. And then section, we specify the validations. So now the path parameter and query parameters. So we will define them inside the prerequisite, inside the given section. Let's say this is my complete URL. So the path parameter and query parameters. So these two things I will define inside the given section as a prerequisite. And then I will pass them along with the request inside the when. So in the given section, I can use one method here, dot path param, dot path param. So this is the method we can use. Here we have to pass two parameters, key and value. So if I just look at this URL, users is a path. So this is the path actually. So what you can see here, I can specify the some variable name. Let's say my path, and the value of the path parameter is what? Users. That we can specify. This is path parameter. This is path parameter. So we can specify path parameters by using path param method, dot path param. And here, this is the path users, and I'll give some name to this path. So my path and the value of the path, key and value pair it will pass. And now this is the way we can specify path parameters. But how we can specify query parameters? Query parameter also we have a method, dot query param, dot query param. And here also we have to specify key and value pair. So we can just look at how many query parameters are there. Page is one query parameter, page equal to 2, that is one query parameter. ID equal to 5. This is also another query parameter. So have a two query parameters. So we have to write two methods, query param, and here page. So the name of the query parameter is page. The value of the query parameter is 2. So page, comma 2. So this is one query parameter. First, we are defining all the parameters. This is query parameter. And there is one more query parameters, dot query param and ID. ID, and the value of ID is 5. I can say the value of ID is 5. So this is another query parameter. So if you have any path parameters or query parameters, we can define them inside the given method. Instead of sending them directly in the URL, we can separately create them in the given method and come to the when section. Here we have to send a request. So I'm sending a get request, dot get. And what is the URL? This is the URL we are going to send. Copy this. And if I just look at this URL, these values are hard coded. So now I want to replace them with these parameters. So users is a path parameter. So I just remove this, and then I can just specify in the curly brace. In the curly brace, specify the name of the path parameter. What is the name of the path parameter? My path. That you can specify here. My path. Only path parameter we have to pass, and the rest of the query parameters we already defined here, which will go along with the request. So we can simply remove this part. So this part is not required because the query parameters will go along with the request, But if it is a path parameter, we have to specify that in the curly brace. Along with the request, we have to pass. Okay. So this API is also path parameter, right? If you want to specify this, you can also write at the different parameter. So you can just write like this. You can also write one more path parameter. And here I say my path 1 or my path 2. My path 1 is what? API. My path 2 is what? Users. So here you can specify one more curly brace. Okay, but I don't consider this as a path because for every API, this is a common thing. Till here, this part is a common for every request. So that's the reason I have not taken API as a separate thing, but I have taken users as a separate thing because this is the actual endpoint. So endpoint is what? Only users. From the users, this part is endpoint. Till here, every API request is having this part commonly. So that's the reason I have not defined another path parameter. Okay. But if you still want to have, you can just define, no problem. So I'll say path param users page to ID equal to 5. So here this parameter, so we can just replace here, and query parameters will go along with the request. And then here we can do the validation. So dot status code, you can verify as a 200 status code. And then if you want to log all the response, you can say log dot all. So you can just specify that log and then semicolon. So this is how we can just specify the path parameters and query parameters. Okay. What is that question? Why don't add the query parameter? Query parameters are not required. So as per the syntax, we have to follow. Okay. So only there is a difference. Path parameter is a different, query parameter is a different. Path parameters, we have defined our own variable here. It is just like a variable, but these are not a variables actually. Query parameters are not variables. So that's the reason we should not give the names as per our wish. So page ID. So these things should be exactly the matching with this query parameter in the URL. So that's the reason we have given the same name. Whatever page is here, page ID. But what about this one? Users. We have given our own name here, my path. So that's the reason we have to refer with the name here. So we have to refer with the name key. These are keys. But if we look at the query parameters, we have to specify the key values exactly which is there in the URL. But path parameter, in the path parameter, we have to give our own name and we have assigned some value to the path parameter. And this variable I'm using here. It is just like a referring the variables. Path parameter is nothing but a just referring the variable. So here we define one variable and we are referring here. But query parameter is not like that. Query parameters are not a variables. Okay, query parameters are not a variable. So we have to specify the same values here. Page is to ID equal to 5. So here also ID equal to 5. So when I say query parameters, these parameters will go automatically along with this request. We no need to write this page ID along with this URL, not required. Got the difference between path parameter and query parameter? Path parameter is just like a variable. So we have defined here and then we have to use here or we have to refer here. But query parameters are not the variables. Query parameters are the parameters which will go along with the request. So we cannot change the key and value pairs here. But in the path parameters, we can give any name here. You can give any name here. The value is specified. So this variable we are referring as part of the request. And path parameters, query parameters will go as it is along with your request. You don't need to refer them inside the request. So if you have any query parameters, you can just specify them inside the given method itself. So this will go along with the request. So this is how we can just define the query parameters, path parameter. If you have any query parameters or path parameters in your API request, try to separate them in the given method instead of passing them directly in the URL. Suppose if there's something is got changed, you can directly change it here, not in the URL. Okay. And very important. Now let me just execute this. Okay, now I can just look at the response and see what is an output we get here. So what is the page number 2 we passed? ID equal to 5 we passed. See, we got exact ID here. Page number is not displaying. Okay, but ID is correctly displayed here. So it went to page number 2 and got the data which is having ID 5. So whatever parameter we are passing here, and these parameters, query parameters will go along with the request. So please remember syntax, only path parameter we have to refer by using curly brace. Query parameters we don't refer. These query parameters will go along with the request automatically. Okay, so remember this. Okay, so this is all about query param, path parameter. So query parameter, just like a variable that we have to refer in the request, otherwise it will not go. But query parameters, we no need to refer them in the request. So as soon as you return the query parameters, that will go along with the request. So path parameters are basically routing the request where it should go. And query parameters basically filter the data. So once it is reached the destination or once it is reached the server, it will filter the data by using query parameters. Okay, that is a context. So whichever ID you have passed here, whichever page you have passed, that information you will get from the server. So we can just run one more time. Okay, so now we got some data here. So this is a response, headers, cookies, and data. You got a lot of other things. So very simple concept, small concept. So please remember. And whenever you see some path and query parameters in your request, try to separate them in the given method. That's what I'm saying. If you find something like this inside your URL, better to keep them in the given method as a prerequisite, so that you don't need to write a complete URL. Okay, instead of hard coding these values here in the URL, we can directly separate them into another section and you can refer them in the URL. And tomorrow, if you want to change the page and IDs, you can change here. You don't need to change any URL. So that is a concept. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. So sometimes you may not have any query parameters. So you can just look at here, only one condition. So this is only one condition, one query parameter. If you have a multiple query parameters, we have to write multiple methods. And with single method, we cannot create multiple query parameters. Same thing for path parameters. If you have a multiple path parameters, you have to create multiple path parameters. Similarly, if you have a multiple query parameters, you have to create multiple query parameters. Right. So now let's move on to the next one. Cookies and headers. So this is another thing which we need to focus. So cookies and headers. So what is cookies and headers? So sometimes when you send a request, we will get cookies and headers as part of the response. So we will get some cookies and headers as part of the response. Now we want to see what are the cookies are created and what are the headers are created by the request. And I want to see what are those cookies, what are the headers. I want to get some information. I want to capture some data from the cookies and headers. So then we will see how we can handle this. So create another class, a new class, and cookies demo. Okay. So here, what I can do is first let me open my Postman. I'll show you something. Okay. So in my Postman, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to send some request. Just a second. Okay. So I'm just going to create a new collection. Okay. So inside this, I'm going to create a new request. So here I'm sending google.com page. I say google.com. So this is the page I'm going to send as a request, a post request, and go to your Postman and then send it, because sometimes you may not get cookies and headers for every API request. And you may get headers information, but you may not get cookies information. So I'm just sending this URL as part of get request. And now you can see this is the response it is given. So this is the entire response which is given by this URL. And this is a response body actually. So if I just go back to the cookie section here, it is generated 3 different type of cookies. So these are the cookie names. And these are the values of cookies and from which domain it is created, path, when it will expire. So some other information will be displayed. So now my requirement is through our automation script, we want to capture this cookies information. Okay, we want to capture this cookies information. So let me show you how we can do this. So let's create one method, void test cookies, and this is our test annotation. Okay, so this is our test method, and inside this, I'm going to write few methods. Given, when, then. Okay, so three sections, and we should also import static packages. So let me just import them. Okay, so now in the given part, so I will just specify in the given, I don't have any prerequisite, so I can just leave that empty. Now come to the when method. Here, I'm directly sending the get request. So what is my get request? I will just send the URL of application. So this is the URL I'm going to send. And this is this request will go as a get request. Now, once you send a get request, so which will give you some response. Okay, so I just want to log the response. I say dot log dot all. So which will log everything in the console window. And let's see what are all cookies it is creating. Okay, so my request is successful. Now you can just look at here. This is all about response body. And these are all headers which is created. Okay, so these are the headers which is created. And here you can see some cookies also created. So these are the cookie information. These are the cookies information which is captured. So now we have to just check some cookies present or not. Or suppose AEC, this is my cookie name and this is the value. So these values will not be constant every time. So the values keeps dynamically changing. So we cannot expect the exact value of the cookie every time. We can't expect the exact value of the cookie every time. So it will keeps changing, but we can still check something on the cookie, whether this cookie is, first of all, the cookie is present or not, the cookie is generated or not. Even though value is not matching, but still that fine. So whether cookie is there, that is fine. So we can just check that. Okay, so let me show you how we can do this. So here we are just printing all the response. But instead of doing that, I want to verify something here. And if I just go to the Postman, and this is the cookie name, AEC is my cookie name. And here, this is some value which is generated. And every time this value keeps changing, it will not be the constant. So AEC is the name of the cookie. So what we can do is we can do some validation here. Dot, there is a method called cookie, dot cookie. And here we have to pass key and a value pair. So what is the key here is cookie name. Cookie name is what? AEC is my cookie name. And what is the value which is generated in my first request? This is the value which is generated. So this value may not be the same every time. So definitely our test will fail. This is a cookie. So what is the expectation here is, if the value keeps changing means what? That functionality is working fine. Because whenever I say cookie, whenever you are getting some data from the server, the new cookie information will be generated. So that's the reason every time it should not be same. Even our expectation is also same. So if you hard coded some value here, our test should fail. Why? Because it will not be the same every time. If the test is failed means what? Our cookie is generated. Our cookie is generated with the new value. That is our expectation. So here AEC is the name of the cookie, and this is the value I have specified. And once I have run manually through Postman tool, I capture this one. So now I'm again running here, then observe. And that should fail actually. We are expecting some value of the cookie, but every time it should keeps changing. So that will not match. You can just look at the output here in the console. Just a second. Okay, so go to the console and see here. So expected is got failed. So AEC was not this one. So it is clearly saying this is the value we are giving. That is not correct. But what is the cookie value it is generated now? So this is the new value which is generated. Both are not matching. So definitely it will fail. If it is a failed means what? Our test is passed. Because the cookie value keeps changing. So that is the behavior of cookie. So the value will not be constant. So we can't expect the exact value in every round of execution. So this is simple information. Suppose I have multiple cookies are there. See here, I have a multiple cookies and I want to capture the data of all the cookies. Let's say each and every cookie, there is some value associated with that. So I want to capture every cookie name along with the values. So for that, how we can do this? Capture cookies information. Let me write one more test method. So here I'm saying get cookies info. I say this is priority 2 and this is priority 1. Okay, so this I'll comment for now. So let's go to the second one. Okay, so here we are sending again same request, and instead of getting the specific cookie, what I will do is in the when section, I will get the entire response into variable. In the first session, I have shown you how to capture the entire response into one single variable. So in that case, just remove this then part and end the statement here. Get request. Okay, here itself the statement is got end. So once you end this request, what is this get method will return? It will return the response object. So the entire response we can store in a variable. Here you can specify that variable. So res equal to, and the type of the variable is what? Response. Response is a type of the variable. Now import this response from io.restassured.response. So now this entire request is sent, and once I get a response, that response will be stored in this variable. And the response in the sense what it is having response body, headers, cookies, everything. So now we want to extract only cookies from this response. So we already end up the statement here. So now we will write a normal Java code here. So we already got the data in the response. So from that response, we have to capture only cookies information. So to capture the cookies information, again, we can capture single cookie information, multiple cookies information. Let us say how to get single cookie info. For example, AEC is generated. The value of AEC is something. So I want to capture that information. Only single cookie information I want to capture. So for that, we can capture it from the response variable. So res, whatever variable I created here. So res dot get cookie. This is a method, get cookie. And here we have to specify the name of the cookie. What is the cookie name here? AEC is the name of the cookie. I say AEC. That name of the cookie will not change, but the value of cookie keeps changing in every request. So res dot get cookie of cookie name. So what this statement will do? This statement will give you the value of this particular cookie. So that I can store in a variable. I say cookie underscore value. cookie underscore value. Now, what is the type of this variable? And when you put the cursor here, get cookie method will return string type of data. So this variable should be string type. So what we have done here is we have just send one get request and store the response in a variable. From this variable, I'm extracting the cookie information, specific cookie information. And which cookie it is? AEC is the name of the cookie. So when you pass name of the cookie here, that will give you value of the cookie. So now cookie underscore value contains what? The value of AEC cookie. The value of AEC cookie. Now I can just print that value. So here I say the value of cookie is plus this variable name we have to specify. It is just for getting the cookie info. Okay, so here we end up the statement. So we haven't written then part, then method we have not written. So we have end up the statement here. So we put the semicolon. Then only this method is end here and it will return the response. But if you want to put some validation, then you should not put the semicolon here. Then you have continuation, right? Dot then you have a continuation here. So that's the reason we should not put semicolon here. But after this get request, I don't have any continuation. So I can just remove this then method. And here I'll end up this statement so that it will return the response into this variable. Okay, so if you don't put the semicolon, if you directly write then section and other validations, so then this will not store any response in this response variable. It will not return anything because there is a continuation methods are there. Okay, so if you want to capture the entire response from the request, we should not specify then. We should end the statement at the get request itself. So this will return the entire response into the variable. And from that variable, we are able to extract response, headers, cookies, and then we can do some validations. Okay, so I have captured the cookie value here, and then I'm printing the cookie value here. Just capture the value of single cookie. Let's try to execute now. So first one I have commented. So now I'm executing only this one. I'm not logging everything. I'm just trying to print the value of cookie. Okay, now you can see the value of cookie is this one. So this is the value we have just captured and then printed. Suppose I want to capture the values of all the cookies which are generated. I want to capture the values of all cookies which are generated. So then how we can do this? Let me comment this too. Now continuation. Get all cookies info. So here we are getting only single cookie information. But here we want to get information of all the cookies because every cookie is having some value, right? So for that, what you can do from this response, we have to capture all the cookies information. So how to capture all the cookies information from this response? Again, rec dot, there is a method called get cookies. Get cookies. This is a method. So previously, what is the method we use? Get to cookie. It will return only single cookie based on the key which we specified, cookie name we specified. But this time it will get you all the cookies from the response. And what is the return type of this? When you get all the cookies from the response, what is the return type? They are basically returning the map. Map is nothing but a hash map. Contains the key and value pairs. Hash map and map. Map is an interface. Hash map is a class which is implemented map interface. Both are having same kind of data, right? So map is nothing but a key and a value pair. So where we can store these cookies, I can store like this. Cookies underscore values. I'm creating one variable. And what is the type of this variable is what? The type of the variable is map of string. String is nothing but a key is also string, values also string. So specifically they mentioned that. So we have to say map in the angular bracket. We have to say string comma string. So this is the return type. And we have to import this map from java.util. So this particular statement will capture all the cookies from this response and store them in this particular variable. Now, this variable is having multiple keys and values. It is just like a hash map. In the hash map, we can store data in the key and value pairs, right? Now, if you want to read all the keys and values from this hash map, how we can get them? I want to extract keys and values, all the keys, all the values from this hash map variable. I want to extract them. So what is the method we can use? In the Java sessions, I've told you how to read the data from the hash map by using looping statement. We have to use loop statement here. Okay, so how we can write a loop statement? I want to capture the cookies information. So which is contains a key and a value pairs, both the key and value pairs. Okay, so let me just try to print only keys. How to print only keys from this variable? Only keys. Only keys. Dot key set. There is a method called key set. So the variable name dot key set. So this will give you all the keys information, only keys. Okay, let me just execute and show you. Run as test-ng test. It will print only keys information, but not values. So we have to extract values later. Now you can see the console window. See here, these are the keys. Means what? This is one cookie name. This is another cookie name. This is another cookie name. So totally 3 cookies have been printed. And if you know this cookie name, can we extract the value from this cookie? If you know the cookie name, can we extract the value from this cookie? Yes, right? So previously we have done the same thing. So in the previous example here, we passed the cookie name here. Sorry, here we have passed the cookie name here and we have extracted the value, right? So this particular statement will return all cookies information, like keys will return. And once you know the key, we can extract the value of the cookies. We can extract the value of the keys. Guys, understood or not? So if you know about hash map concept, you will be able to understand this. In the hash map, we have a multiple keys. Okay, so okay, let's say key 1 and key 2 and key 3 and so on. Every key is having some values like this. Okay, so if you want to extract all the keys, we use a key set method. Key set is a method. And once you know the key, we can extract the values from by using key. Which method? We have to use this method, get to cookie method. When you pass key here, that will extract the value. So first of all, we have to capture all the keys and then we have to read each and every key. Parallelly, we have to get the value from the key. For that, we have to write a looping statement. Okay, so let me just try to write a looping statement here. So this is not our intention to print cookies. Here, I'm going to write one for loop and enhanced for loop I'm writing. So here I directly say cookie values dot key set. Key set. So what this will return? This will return multiple keys. Now I want to read each and every key in a variable. In a variable. Okay, each and every key into variable. Here I'll define one variable called k. And what's the type of this variable now? What is the type of this variable? What's the type? String, right? Because every key and every value is a string. So this is a string type. Now, in the first iteration, from this first key, we can store in this variable. So now I have captured the key. So once you know the key, can we extract the value of the key? Yes. How we can extract? By using this statement. So here we have to pass the key. So instead of value, you can say key. Key I'm passing, k value I'm passing. So from the key set, I'm extracting the first key and passing that key here, extracting the value. And once extracted the value, then you can print. So now I want to print cookie name along with the value. So what is the cookie name? K is a cookie name. And then I'll give one space. Then I want to print a value of the cookie. So what is the value of the cookie? This is the value of the cookie that I can say. So cookie name and a cookie value. So this loop will repeat multiple times. Every time it will get another cookie name here. and capture the value from the cookie and then print the value of the cookie. So this loop will repeat multiple times, depends on the number of cookies created by the request. Okay, now let us try to execute now. It is just a logic, simple logic through which we can read the data from the hash map. Okay, now we can just look at this. This is my first cookie name and this is a value. The second cookie name and this is the value. This is a third cookie name and this is the value. So like this, we can capture the cookies information from the response. And we can capture specific cookie information. And also we can capture all the cookies information one by one. Right, so this is how we need to write the code. So to get all these things, what we have to do? First, we have to capture the entire response into a variable, response variable. Then only we will be able to filter all other stuff. Even if you want to work with headers, cookies, or other stuff, we have to get everything from the response. Okay, so this is the way we can work with the cookies. This is the way we can capture all the cookies. Now, same thing we can do for headers also. Headers also will be generated at the runtime. Once you send a request, headers also we will able to get. And we can also verify headers information. And cookies information is not every time constant. So we cannot exactly validate the values of cookies, but we can just simply check the cookie information is there or not. But in case of headers, the values of headers is always same. Okay, when you send some request, you will get the same header values every time. So we can do validation on the header values. Okay, so let's see how we can capture the headers now. So like just like a cookies, we can also capture the header information from the request, and we will see that now. Okay, so that is all about cookies. Now let's see the headers. So how we can get the information of the headers for the request, and how we can validate the headers information. So for that, I'm going to create new class headers demo. Okay, so let me just copy the same thing. So the same method I'm going to copy. And also we need to keep all the static imports as usual. So let me just copy this. Okay, so now it is test headers. Okay. So the same request I'm going to send again google.com, and here what I will do is I want to verify some header content. I want to test some header content because the values of headers is always same, constant values you will get. Okay, so now let's go to Postman, and if I send this request, you will get some headers along with the cookies. So these are the cookies. Now go to the header section. So these are the different headers. See here, date, expires, cache control, and even some information in the header also keeps changing. Not every field, some information. So for example, what are the things we will not change is server information, content encoding, content type, cache control. Okay, and this information is most of the times it is constant. And this information will be changed, date, when it will expire. Okay, and sometimes P3P and other details also there. So these details keeps changing. So whatever details are constantly coming, those details most of the times will validate. Especially we validate content type. We mainly focusing on the content type, and also content encoding process. So content type and content encoding. So these are the two important things most of the times we will verify. And sometimes the server also. So from which server we are getting the request. So server name it will show you. So this server name also sometimes we can validate. So let us see how we can do this. So I'm sending the request here. And once you send the request, we don't have any prerequisites in the given section. So I said when get method inside the then, I want to verify some header information. So for example, I want to verify the content type. So here I have a content type I want to verify. So what is the content type here is, this is a content type which is generated. So I want to verify this. So for that, what we can do is we can simply say dot, there is a method called header, dot header. And what is the field you want to verify? Content type. So that we have to capture from here. So this is the content type. So this is a content type we have to validate. Content type. And what is the value you are expecting? You have to specify here. What is the value you are expecting for the content type? So this is the value I'm going to expect from the content type. So that you can specify. So here we can say expected and actual. So this is the content type we are expecting. And at the runtime, if it is matches, then this validation will pass. Similarly, let me put one more validation, dot header. And one more header I want to verify. So let's say I want to verify something called content encoding. Content encoding I want to verify. So this is our content encoding. And what is the value of this content? Zip. Content encoding is a zip. Keep inside the double quotations. Right. So like this, you can add multiple validations. So I can also add server dot header, and server is GWS. This is a server name. And once your validations are done, if you want to log the response in the console window, you can log it, or else you can just put the semicolon here. So like this, you can put different validations on different header information. And suppose if you have multiple validations like this, you can also add one more method here, end. So somebody asked this at the beginning of the session. So you can also additionally add end method, end. Not mandatory required, but if you want to add, you can still add it, but not necessarily required. So here, if you have a multiple validations, then you can separate them by using end method, or else you can just leave, no problem. Right. So now I have put multiple headers information. I'm validating multiple headers. Now let us see whether they will pass or not. So most of the times headers content will be the same. It will not change, but there are certain fields, they will keep changing. We can't validate them. So let us try to execute this. And I need to put the test annotation for this. Test, import this test. Yeah, now execute. Okay, so all validations are got passed. So, and we have not printed any response here. So I haven't get any response. So just verify all that validation points and it's got passed. So this is the basic validation we can do on the headers. Now, suppose I want to get the information from the header, just like a cookies. We have captured the information about the cookies, right? Single cookie, multiple cookies. Similarly, we can also capture the information of single header, multiple headers. We can capture. So let me show you one more example, how to capture the information from the headers. So let's create one more test. I commented the first one. So this is second one. Test priority equal to get headers. Okay, so same request I'm sending. So if you want to capture the response in a variable, then what we should do? We should not put this then section. Okay, just remove this and end this statement with the semicolon. So this will return the response. And where we can store the response? Here we can create a variable of response type. Response res equal to. So then it will give the it can store the response, right? So it will store the response in this variable. So given, when, and get. Given is empty, nothing is having, when and get. Now in the response variable, we have a response stored. In the response headers also it contains. So now we'll see how to capture the single header information. Get single header info. Get single header info. So what we need to do, again, same response variable dot we have a method called get cookie, right? So that is for getting the cookie information. Similarly, here we have a method called get header. And here we have to specify the name of the header. So for example, let's say content type, I'm just specifying content type. And this will return the value of the header. So I can store that in a variable. I can create one string variable. So here I can say header value. Then I can print this. Okay, so I can just print the header value here. So I can say the value of content type header is just printing the value. So content type header value I have captured here. So now execute. And this will print the value of single header. Okay, so now it is captured the value of single header. So now in the first test, we just verified header content is correct or not. So if I just go to my first test method, here we verified the header content is correct or not. So content type is this one or not. Content encoding is gzip or not. Server is GWS or not. We are verifying here. Okay, this is about first test. Now come to the second one. Here we are not doing any validation. We are just trying to get the information from the headers. Okay, so I capture the response into this variable. And from this variable, I'm specifying the header name that will give the value of header and then have printed here. Okay, let me run one more time and this will print the value of content type header. So if I just look at the console here, which will print the value of header, you can see here, the value of content type header is this one. This is the value which is written. And similarly, I want to retrieve the values of all headers. Yeah, so we can retrieve the values of all headers. Then again, we have to write a looping statement for that. So let me show you. So capture all headers, get all headers info, get all headers info. So get all headers info. So to get all headers info, again, we have a method. So from this response variable, we have to call one method called get headers. Okay, get headers. Get a header is what? To capture the single header information. Get headers is nothing but it will capture multiple headers information. So we no need to pass any arguments here. Get headers. And what the return type here? I say my headers. I'm creating one variable. Now, what is the return type of this? Put the cursor. It is returning headers. It is returning headers. The return type of this method is what? Headers. So now the variable type is what? Headers. That we have to specify. Now these headers also we have to import from io.restassured.http. Okay. So now we captured all headers information into this variable. Now I want to read each and every header one by one. This is not hash map. Okay, this is not hash map, but still, which will store the data in the key and value pair. Okay, so how we can read this data? So for that, I'm writing one for loop. So here, this variable contains all the headers, and every header type is what? Header. Every type is what? Header. So you need to understand something, guys, here. There are two types, header and headers. Header and headers. Header is representing single header. Single header means what? Which contains a header name and a value. So here, header, name, and a value. So headers is nothing but what? Multiple headers and multiple values. See here, multiple headers is nothing but what? Multiple headers, multiple values. Okay, now observe this carefully. So here, header is representing one single header, which contains a name and value. Headers is representing multiple headers. And again, every header is having name and value. Now, if you just look at this, I created this variable as headers, right? What does it mean? This variable contains multiple headers or not? This variable contains a multiple headers or not? Yes, we have a multiple headers. And every header is having name and value or not? Every header is having name and value or not? Yes. So now if header is having some name and value, what is the type of this header? Specific type. What is the type of the header? Header only, right? The type of header is header. So here, if you have header name and value, what is the type here? Header. So in headers, we have a multiple headers. So every header type is what? Every header type is what? Header only, right? So in the looping statement, what we have to say, we have to capture each and every header from this my headers, right? So the type of header is what? What is the type of this variable now? The type of the variable is what? Header. Okay, the type of the variable is header. So this is how we need to understand. This also we need to import. So from my headers, I'm reading one by one each and every header into this variable. Now, what is the type of the variable is? Header. Now from this header HD, I can extract the name of the header, value of the header. How we can extract? I can just print hd dot get name. So this will give the name of the header. Okay. And I'm giving some space. And here I want to get the value of the header. So hd dot get value. This will give the value of header. So name of the header, value of the header. Both we are printing. So this is how we need to write a logic. First of all, we have to capture the response in the variable. And then by using this response, we capture all header information into this variable. And that type of the variable is headers. And by using this looping statement, we can read each and every header into this variable. And then from that variable, we are extracting the name of the header, value of the header. This is how we can print the values of all headers. So it will print all headers, not only one or two. So whatever headers are generated, all header information, it will print. Now when I execute as a test-ng test, which will print all the header information. But this feature is not that much useful because when you say log.all, it will print all header information by default. You can see here, these are the headers and these are the values you printed here. These are all comes under headers. Okay. So this is not useful much. Why? Because when you say here when you say log all, so which will automatically print all headers information in the console window. You just want to see the headers info. This is enough. And you no need to write a big logic like this, not required. So you can simply write log.all. This will print headers. Directly it will print headers. And not all means what? Which contains a response, cookie, headers, status code, everything. But if you want to print only headers, you can just say simply headers. Here log dot, instead of all, you can say headers. You can simply say headers. Log dot headers means it will return only headers in the response. It will print only headers in the response. Okay, I'll show you this in the next example. In the logging concept, I'll explain. Okay, so this is how we can just work with the headers information. We can capture the headers. We can know the information of the headers, and we will know how many headers are created. So this is simple logic which you can write. Cookies and headers. So this is also part of the response. Okay. So now let us move on to the next concept. Okay. So the next concept is log. So we are using this method, right? Log. Where we are using this method, we are using this in the then method. So if you want to print the response in the console window, we are using this method log. So again, this contains so many sub methods. So I'll show you, very useful. Let me show you that. New class. And I say logging demo. Okay. So here I'm just creating one method, void test logs, specify test annotation. priority equal to 1. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how many ways we can write a log. Let me copy the static imports. Okay. So it's very simple. Let me just try to send some request, or you can just copy from. Okay. Let me just given. So given, when, and then. Okay. So I'm going to send some request in the when section dot get. You can take any URL, that's fine. So I'm just going to take this one. Any URL is fine. So I can just passing some request. And in the then section, what we need to put normally, we will verify the status code and other things along with the response. I want to show the response. I want to see the response in my console window. So normally what you will do is dot log dot all. We say this method. So what this will do, this will print the entire response in my console window, which includes response body, headers, cookies, status code, everything. Because we say all means everything in the response will be printed in the console window. So let me just execute here. And you can see the entire response in the console window. Okay, now you can just look at the response. So these are all headers information, and some of them are cookies information also created. Right. So here, these are the cookies actually. And then here, this is a response body. You can see here, this is all response body, which is printed, and which is also having status code. So this is our status code. So everything is a part of your response. So from this response, I don't want to print everything. I just want to print something here. So instead of all, I can say only log dot body. I want to print only response body. I don't want to print headers, cookies, status code, all these things. Simply say body here. Log dot body. It will print only response, nothing else. If I just execute this, it will print only body from the response. Now you can just look at this. Previously, it was printed headers, cookies, and status code and everything. But this time we got only response. Other than this response, we don't have anything else. So if you want to log only response, you can simply say log dot body. Okay. Suppose I want to print only cookies from the response, only cookies. Say log dot cookies, log dot cookies. So this will print only cookies from the response. Try to execute one more time. So this will print only cookies from the response. Yes, I think there are no cookies have generated, so it is not printed anything here. There is no cookies have generated, so there is no cookies printed. So if you have cookies generated, so then it will print only cookies. That's a one more method. Suppose I want to print only headers. Then I can say log dot headers. So this will print only headers from the response. Only headers from the response. Okay, now we can see these are the only headers which are printed from the response. There are no cookies available. Only headers it will print. Similarly, when I say log all means which will print everything, response body, cookies, headers, status code, everything it will print. When I say log dot all. Log dot all. So this will print everything. So these are the different sub methods are available in the log. So it is also very useful. Okay, so now we got the headers, and if there are any cookies, you will get cookies also along with the response. So this is a process of logging. So we can log all the details from the response in the console window, and we can use this method along with the then method. Okay, so it is very simple concept. Just try to practice this once, and that is enough. All right, so here I'll stop today. Tomorrow we'll continue that.